Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. I'm Brian. I'm the host of the Left of Greg show. You're going to be watching the video version of our audio podcast. Please, guys, if you like the video, like it, subscribe to the channel. There's going to be more content on there if you're already a subscriber, and a better way for us to get you guys some more stuff. If you have any questions or comments, go ahead and leave them below. Check out our links down below to get a hold of us and to actually find out more places where you can get more information about this. Please like and subscribe. Follow us on Facebook at HBPRNA. Remember, all these cases that we discuss and all these discussions that we have are through the lenses of what we call human behavior, pattern recognition, and analysis. So please like it, share it, tell your friends about it, and we hope you enjoy the show. All right, Greg. Well, good morning on this Aloha Friday morning, as you can tell. And again, folks, if you have not watched us on the YouTube version, there's a lot more going on in it. So you could always pick up more if you're not getting enough from the audio version.
Little visual cues. What do they call them, Aaron? Easter eggs, right? You got little clues in there.
Easter eggs? Yep. I don't know.
Ooh, a piece of candy.
Again, it is Aloha Friday when we're recording this, but you're probably listening to this on a Monday or Tuesday or whenever you get to it. But today's episode I want to get into is a shout out to our buddy Walt from down in Texas and the Distinguished Savage podcast. Walt had us on there a little while ago. I'll put the links up in the episode details to check out that. But Walt brought up a number of great questions, and we get questions a lot from people. Mm-hmm. And so we kind of wanted to go over them. So today I kind of want to rehash a couple of the questions, a couple points that Walt brought up, because he framed one really well that we didn't get to in the podcast because we didn't kind of hear it that way. But when I saw it in writing, I went, oh, crap, this is a whole nother route we can take. So I want to get to those questions, and we'll kind of go over after that some common other questions that we get from people. So one right away that I know you get all the time, and I've gotten plenty of times, is my spouse cheating on me, which we've talked about before, which is hilarious, which I love saying, hey, you just met me a couple hours ago, and you're walking up to me asking me if
throwing her under the bus, or him.
Exactly. I think you already know the answer to that question.
If you're asking.
Yeah. So if you're asking a complete stranger. But we'll go ahead and jump into this one. And so we talked about a whole bunch of stuff. And the first one I wanted to start with, because I didn't realize how he asked it until I went back and read the text version of what he sent, was he talked about our episode number 56 that we called The Cup Runneth Over, where we talk about rage and rage attacks, which a lot of what we see is. But he said, I was fascinated by you guys and the breakdown of rage attacks on authorities. And what he said is, why is it that people that want to lash out at authority figures? And we've talked about that on that episode and on his, but his follow-up question, which I don't think we got to on there, is it anyone who represents structure? And I was like, hey, that's a great term, right? Anyone that represents structure. So I'd like you to kind of take a swing at it first, because I have a couple things I want to add, but I want to get to your opinion on it. Is that, so we talk about rage attacks and visible signs of authority, and that doesn't have to be an actual authority. It can just be a visible sign of something that's close enough. And what does that have to do with also maybe a visible sign of what he called structure, and how would that be different?
Yeah. So again, shout out to Walt. We love Walt. Great podcast there. Folks, tune into him. You'll enjoy the hell out of him. My thing is, Brian, I guess I would see that question in two ways. The first question, or the first way, the facet that I'm looking at, would be that if you mimic a behavior that I already have a file folder for, then it's going to turn into a domestic or a rage attack or violence merely because you mimicked long-standing fear, hate, death, whatever I've got. Now, I'll give you an example of that. Your uncle beat you like a shoe. And every time that you saw him, he took you out behind the woodshed, and he was just the most brutal taskmaster. And you hated going over to his country house or whatever the hell your situation was. But then all of a sudden, you get into a situation where you're both fighting over parking in a parking space. And the guy rolls down his window and says, let me tell you something. And for that second, you're transported back to that exact moment in time when your uncle had that same look and that same feel, and it's cognitively close enough. And all of a sudden, man, that triggers that emotion, and you get the dump. You get the chemicals are racing through your body, and now you just go off. All that pent-up anger and rage and energy that you've had for all those years comes spilling out. So that's one thing And again, I'm hitting a 30,000
Yeah,
foot view.
yeah, yeah. No, there's plenty more examples. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So the other part is any sort of architecture that has structure feels like a famous case, and I won't say where or when, but somebody coming in and interrupting when you're teaching a class for no other reason other than the person has the authority to do so,
Yep.
and comes in and interrupts right in the middle of something that's going on. Okay, well, you want to lash out at
Oh
that
yeah.
person because he's lashing out at your structure. Hey, I wonder what they're doing over there. How are they behind the velvet rope? Why do they get an angle and I don't get an angle? Do you see what I'm trying to say? It's like,
It,
waiting
it's
in
two
line.
sides of the same coin,
Yeah,
basically.
you're exactly right. Waiting in line at a grocery store, and now we've got the 6 foot rule, so you can't do this. But when all this horse crap is over, do me a favor, try your social distancing and stand as the person in front of you is, putting out their groceries and doing that. The more you delay, the more people get bent out of shape, and it's like, look, I can't climb on the register. I can't work in between this guy's groceries. So just chill. But we don't do that. That's order. That's structure. Listen, you have to wait here. The latest thing, go down this aisle, then go down this aisle. And I see people willfully violating it. Why? Because it's order and it's structure. And you feel like you're in control if you go the opposite way. You feel like you're in control. I can push my cart 5 feet and put it in the cart thing, but I'm going to leave that son of a bitch here because they charge me enough for my groceries. It's a control thing, Brian. So whenever somebody mimics that level of control, and our cup is full, we've had a long day, we've been on the treadmill of waiting for the DMV, then I got out and I had to do this, and my bill came in late and all that other stuff. Brian, that stress has to go somewhere. And
Right.
so that's why we call it venting. And if we don't vent it appropriately, working out, going out to the garden, do you get what I'm trying to
Yeah.
say? Masturbating, I don't care what it is, a
Whatever it
fever,
is. Yeah.
beating your junk like it owes you money. The idea, Brian, is that if you don't, your brain will. Your brain is going to find a way to vent that.
Right.
And you don't want to be at ground zero when that happens.
No, and that creates into a great point about mental health and resilience and where all that
Yes.
stuff comes from and how to mitigate it. But I think it's like you said, those feelings percolate over time, right?
Yes.
Nothing just happens in a vacuum out of nowhere, right? It percolates over time, and we talk about this a lot on here that we don't know when that's going to come out. If it's someone whose cup is full, right?
Yes.
That's why the name of that episode was "The Cup Runneth Over,"
Yep.
because that container, right? That's an explosion, right?
Am I coming up? Are they coming down? Are
Yeah.
we going to meet at a crescendo of violence? Yeah, you're right, Brian.
And so that, I mean, I think that, and why it happens to certain people is just that. You made a great point of something that happened to us recently during that course we were teaching, where the guy came in and was trying to do whatever, and I was ready to choke slam him
Yep.
and throw him over the balcony we had. But and that happens. But it doesn't have to be actual law enforcement. It doesn't have to be an authority
No.
figure. But what I like about what he said is what Walt brought up was, hey, does it have to do with this structure? It's
Yeah. So
someone who's enforcing a rule
anything,
that
any rule.
that reminds you of something that
Yes.
you had, because we're all just basically what you're saying is we're just petulant children, because everything we're
We
talking
all
about
are,
stuff I
though.
deal with every day with Harper here at
Exactly. So
Evangel.
let
So
me throw one at you. You and I were at a course, and at the end of the course, the person gave us this incredible emblematic thing to say thank you, and it would look great in a corporate office, and we can't carry it on a plane. And you and I were flying to some other place,
was
so we
that
couldn't
the
carry it in our luggage.
sandalwood cologne in Saudi Arabia?
I'm not gonna answer any question without advice of counsel. What's your dad doing? Get him
Yeah.
on the line. But the idea is that I brought up on the phone. Yes, folks, I know how to use some of this stuff on my phone. I brought up where the closest UPS office is to send it out, and at UPS, FedEx, any of those, I don't care. They're all the
Yeah.
same. And it said none close to you, but there's a U.S. post office. I go, it's great. You can do it at the post office. I remember my small town post office in the east side of Detroit. I remember the one in Gunnison. They're so helpful. So I go in and I'm waiting in this line, Brian, because it's back east, right? And
Hmm.
I'm already a little tense, and we've got other meetings that are planned, and I'm holding this damn thing. So I go up to the counter. I go, yes, ma'am, I'd like to send this to this address. This is the stuff. Here's my credit card. I'm ready to go. And she goes, there's a table over there. Go ahead and wrap it and put it in that box, and you weigh it, and then you bring it back. She gave me this laundry list of stuff that I had to do with the box. I go, well, could you do it? And she goes, no, not in a, whatever. And in the attitude, and I don't remember exactly what she said, Brian, I went from 0 to 60, walked out of the place, and I said, you know what? I'll let this son of a bitch break in my luggage. I don't care. The idea was that that rigid structure from this person at this time after we had finished the course. And so I can imagine easily how some people would say something to her. Well, you can't say something to her because she's representative of
Right.
the whole problem there, right? And,
Right.
and and maybe the person after her, the person before me, pissed her off, or she was having a bad day. So I can't get into it right then. So I absented myself from the situation. That was my stress relief. As I went out in the parking lot,
Yeah.
stream of profanities, threw my luggage in the car, and said, "The hell with it, it's not going." But what if I hadn't? What if I hadn't? I don't know where she is. I don't know what happened to her. I don't know what's going on in her world, and maybe her cup is already running over. Now I elevate. Now the guy behind me goes, "Hey, pal, you're talking to a lady or whatever else," and he gets in it, and I'm like, "Hey, don't lay your hands on me." And the next thing you know, Brian, you got a shooting. People tell me all the time, I don't see how this escalated so quickly. You remember yeah, wow, that
Yeah, that
prick
escalated.
escalated quite quickly.
Where'd you get a grenade from? Yeah, no,
Exactly. He had a try. He killed the guy with a
he
trident.
killed the guy with a
Yeah, but
trident.
you
Yeah,
get what I'm saying. It's so close.
well, and that's when you see those are all the pre-event indicators. You're seeing
Yep.
that in person in line. There's so many times where I've seen that and had to take a step back or walk outside. Not me. I mean, yes, I've had plenty of
Because
those
I brought
situations where
some of my pre-event
well,
indicators with me, didn't I?
I'm not talking about that. Like, yes, I've
Yeah.
been in that same position before where I've had to walk out or do things. I've done that plenty of times. Like, so I
I
have to
thought
calm
you I
myself
thought you were
down.
drawing on your history of long service at a fast food industry. May I take your order, sir? But
so so they're not hiring right now.
not
So
anymore.
if but what I meant was if you're that person standing in line and you're seeing that altercation occur and everyone just goes, oh, look at this guy or whatever. No, that's leading to what you just said. That could be
You're
leading
exactly right.
into a violence. But and I like it too because you brought up the post office, which that obviously is a historical significance.
Well, I was
For
pissed. They were going to
but
charge me the same amount of
yeah.
money, but I had to do everything. Where if I go to UPS, the guy takes everything, goes, "Hey, have a nice day, get out of here."
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So,
Well,
so I felt cheated in some way.
yeah, but that situation is no different than the person yelling at the gate agent in the airport when
Exactly.
their flight is delayed or something's late because it's their fault
Yep.
that you know what I'm saying, that it's their fault that the
What do
flight's
you
delayed.
mean
They
Denver
called
snowed in?
they called them
Exactly.
and said, hey, back off the throttle a little bit, like don't worry about coming in on
We
time.
got this one guy. We want to delay him just to see what he'll do, right?
But that's it. It's but because that person is now becomes like a physical representation of what I'm angry and upset at.
Exactly. So that's the structure, Brian. And
Yeah.
I talked about fast food. There was an article that just happened, and I don't know when this is going to air, but it's less than 24 hours old, where people were going to their local McDonald's, and the local McDonald's, you call, you make your order, you do it online, however you want to do it.
Yeah.
You go in, you pay, you pick it up, and you go. So some of the people that came into the lobby decided to sit down, and the lobby was clearly marked that it was closed. You're only able to sit in the parking lot, take and go. And they got indignant. And when they got indignant, the weapons came out and they started shooting. And there's a couple of people that were shot and people that were running around. Put yourself in the mind of the shooter. It's you're up in my face telling me I can't sit at a McDonald's where a month ago I was in, 2 months ago, and I spend at least one day a week,
Yeah, I
when
come
there's
here
no
every day.
COVID.
Yeah,
Do you
yeah,
get what I'm saying? And
yeah.
you're telling me, and what do you do for a living? You minimum wage. That's how we get, Brian. We don't mean to go there. But remember, we have defense mechanisms that come up because we're tribal. All of us used to live in small groups, and what's going to happen is now somebody is questioning your authority. And we don't like that. We got very fragile ecosystems, right?
Hmm.
So I tell you what, as bad as that was, and that was a crime, and those people shouldn't have brought a gun to damn McDonald's and fought anyway, you got to think that I left the post office because I didn't want to be the glowing ember that started the brush fire. The person
Right.
there that was saying, no, you got to leave. Listen, folks, if you've got an employee, teach them a de-escalation strategy and have that 9-1 ready on your phone with your thumb over the other one, because you don't know how much it's going to take. Where is that person in that fuse, in that burn, Brian? So I say now more than ever, and I hate using that term, especially with COVID, but now more than ever, it's imperative, because guess what? Our read on people is like this.
Yeah,
We're
we
only
can't
reading
see
their
them.
eyes.
Yeah.
You know, my most common statement now is I'm smiling. That was funny. I have to
Yeah.
tell people what's going on behind the mask, you know?
Yeah, no, and that's I mean, man, we could do a whole episode on just, what the breakdown of communication that's going to
Yep.
occur now because everyone's wearing masks and how things are going to escalate quicker or people are going to miss things. That's huge, and there goes everyone's facial technology
Yep.
security that you went with instead of hiring us. Not going to mention any names,
No.
but
Hey, Brian, you sent me something one time when we were on a road, and I laughed all night long because it was exactly this. We used to have a guy when we worked with a company on the West Coast, and the guy was the worst at texts and emails. He could send you a text or an email and piss you off so bad that you would stop the car and call him, and he's like, "Hey, great to hear from you." It was nothing like what he
yeah,
was, but the
yeah.
way he sent it, and you sent me a clip from like Keenan and Kel or somebody like that,
Key and Peele. Yeah, yeah,
Key
yeah,
and Peele, and
yeah.
it was so funny, folks. If you get that one,
I'll put a
that
link up, but
happens.
yeah,
That happens all the time, Brian.
constantly.
What are you trying to say to me? Well, I'm
Well,
trying to say that
it's
the
called
lobby is closed, right?
it's
I'm
a
sorry.
lack yeah, no, the lack of context, right? If you don't have any
Yes.
context for what someone's statement is, but that's why we have emojis and gifs and
Yeah,
memes
but how
and
many
all that stuff.
emojis do we have to use now? Right?
Okay.
I
Well,
mean,
if it's
well,
you,
we have to. Well, I actually use emojis for letters. So I'll send you a sentence with a
I
period
got to
and then it's a
decipher it.
paragraph. Exactly. It's like doing the hieroglyphics. Brian has turned into. He's got that eye. The big fucking thing.
But that's
Oh,
a good
pardon me.
point though. But that's a great point because you just use the term hieroglyphics. It started with those simple
That's exactly
drawings,
it.
and now where have we gone as a species is from writing all this to this, and now we're right back to where just a picture of a guy with
Exactly.
a spear because we get that it's
Exactly.
primitive. We get that.
Our brain completely gets it.
It understands, but that gets into communication and how that
And
works.
the
But
breakdown, and
yes,
all you got to do to light that fuse is add a little bit of structure or a little bit of authority.
and that's exactly where I was going with this is that structure or authority can be the same thing. If I'm angry, if I'm
Yep.
not if I'm amped up, I'm not taking in everything like I normally would. I'm
Yep.
already at this survival level of thinking that I have a threat that I need to handle or deal with that's scaring me, and so that's where I'm at in my head. So I'm not taking it in. You might be the nicest person in the world, but you got
Exactly.
a plastic badge on because you're making minimum wage as a security
See how you're
officer
already
somewhere.
getting
Like,
angry?
no, 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 but
Right.
but
You're
yeah,
exactly right.
and you that to you symbolizes the
Yep.
the cop that beat you up when you were a kid when you weren't doing anything, or you were, or he was
Exactly.
it comes right back. It has nothing to do with what that person is saying in
No.
front of you. But that's why we
No.
always say that's why
And
we
that
say
poor person on the other end of that
yeah.
vitriol, do you know what I'm saying? They're going, dude, this is the only job I can get. Leave me alone.
And
I have a flashlight and a key.
no, and that's the thing is that, and that's why we always take it back to in those moments what most people want their say, not
Yep.
necessarily their way.
Yep.
So just to go to your McDonald's example that you brought
Yep.
up that went to guns real quick, is that guy likely just wanted to have his say, and
Yep.
someone didn't let him. Someone didn't let him have his say, and then
And
he
now
said,
you've got this.
"You know what? Well, I'm
Boom.
going to get my way now." I
Yep.
guarantee,
I'll show you.
he had no intent when he went in there to go shoot up a place or pull a gun out or do anything else.
Precisely. And you need to understand that razor's edge, Colonel Kurtz, Apocalypse Now, Conrad's Heart of Darkness, all those different things. Do your homework, folks. That razor's edge, Brian, is out there every single day. So
Right.
you slow down, you roll down your window. I give you a perfect example of this. There was some gosh damn free hunting channel show on this weekend. And so I had the hunting channel on in the back while I'm hunting and pecking for the letters to type. And they were showing this, guns and ammo, defensive, whatever strategy.
Yeah.
It wasn't them, so don't sue me, you bastards. But what they did is they showed of altercation in traffic. And so the one guy pulled over and got out of the car, and the other guy pulled over right away and got out of the car. Okay, folks, if you're
Stop.
listening, if you can hear this, don't stop. You've got a 5,300-pound weapon that you're driving, and if
Yeah.
some idiot is going to come at you with a tire iron, use the pernal, okay, and use the to get the out of there. But what happened is they showed, so now you've shot the other driver. How the hell did he get there? Well, the idea is a de-escalation strategy by psychologically de-escalating, which I did at the U.S. Mail and went to the UPS, even though it was in the next county. That's what you got to do. And when you're at the airport, you got to ask the woman, hey, is there a bar? Yeah, over there. Okay, well, I'm going to be waiting over there. If you need something, could you just yell over? Yeah, it's fine. Can I get you anything? Do that. You'll change the whole dynamic of your day, Brian, rather than escalating a situation to where you can't take it back. Words hurt. So if you're at home with your loved one, words hurt, and you go, yeah, and another thing.
Yeah.
Shut up with the and another thing. All you're going to do is make that opening even more fragile. And guess what? First the sand and the dirt wash away, and then here comes all that lava flowing out. You
Yeah.
know that we can control our message. We can control our day, but we choose not to because somebody, is up in our face, and we want to have our say and our way.
Yeah, and kind of getting at was that this can be directed towards anyone, not necessarily the actual person that's the cause of the problem or issue
Nope.
or whatever it is. It's going to be directed at, and that's why, like, he brought in authority and someone who symbolizes structure. Same
Yep.
thing. It could be the meter maid. It could be the guy who directs vehicles in a parking lot. You know what I'm
And all
saying?
of those are equal with us. They're
Yeah.
no better or no worse
Yes.
than us, right? But why did they're the person at the end of the line for that minute. Contempt of cop, contempt of corpsman. Do
Yeah.
you
It's
get
the
what I'm
same.
trying to say? And
Yeah.
all they got to do is mimic something where you go, yeah, pal, get out of my way. I got this from here. I've parked before, right? It
Yeah.
just takes
Yeah.
that flash to get that spark, to get remember how they tell you make the nest out of the
And then,
kindling and all that.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So we go straight to the blow. You're gonna
Yeah.
explode, and the other person has to give the gift of time and distance and step back and go, listen, I know you're upset. Let's start over. Why can't we do that, Brian? Why as a group of humans can't we do that? Because we're conditioned to fight first. We're conditioned to fornicate and fight and flee, and then we only freeze if we think the other person's going to take. And those are the first things that come into our mind. So training will change that, because during a part test training or practical application, your instructors, if they're good enough, will take you through all those different emotions and show you those don't get you anywhere, Brian. And
Yeah.
you got to be afraid, because if I'm out, what's that great chicken place that Shelly loves that we don't have one
Oh,
around here?
Chick-fil-A. Yeah, I
Chick-fil-A.
don't have,
You
yeah,
told me about that too,
yeah.
about the great breakfast and stuff. Yay,
Oh, it's so
Chick-fil-A.
good.
So I remember, you remember the In-N-Out burger? How about just the
Just
In-N-Out?
just the in and
But
out.
both of those are similar, West Coast and East Coast, because
Yeah.
the person comes out and starts talking to you at your
Yeah.
car. You're sending that person out with a clipboard. There's your structure, Brian.
Yep.
So are you preparing them for that person that goes, what did you say? You see what I'm trying to say? If you
Yes.
don't have that training, reap the whirlwind. And HR folks, if you're listening, it's the simplest training in the world. Get the folks into a room, have these different scenarios, watch them spiral out of control, and show
Yes.
folks how you can bring them back in. Show
Yeah.
folks how you can de-escalate.
And that's obviously the name of the game is staying one step ahead.
Absolutely.
People it's outthinking the person and getting the outcome that benefits everyone, right? To
It's called the what loop?
de-escalation.
Yeah, but John
Well,
Boyd, right? John Boyd touched on it, Brian. We always come back to Boyd because everybody that I see
yeah,
explain Boyd
is
goes way
horrible.
off the map. You get what I'm trying to say?
Or they
And
just
it's like the beautiful mind. I see stuff swirling, and then
or
I
well,
drink more bourbon.
or they just keep saying observe, orient, decide, act, which is a
Look,
platitude. It's a platitude.
exactly. You have no idea what you're talking about, so
Yeah.
take a knee. And not you, Copernic, but everybody else. And the idea is, oh, don't sue me too, you bastard. But the idea is, this a Friday show? You can tell
It's a
already.
Friday show.
The
Oh, we still
idea,
have
though,
work to do today too
oh
after
my
this.
God,
Oh,
two,
great.
yeah. Hey, my idea is that you got to stay ahead of what's likely going to occur. So understanding the likelihood in any situation and what the pitfalls are, the MD COA. Now I have two lenses that are going to be like the those horses that walk around in Central Park, and they got the big blinders on. Why? So they can stay focused on their task, and a cat or a car
Yeah.
or a cab
Yeah.
doesn't distract them, and they kill everybody in the gosh damn thing behind them. So that's what you need in your life. You need to take a look at a situation, go, I'm about to walk up to this counter, and what
Yeah.
could happen? Robbery in progress, this, that, the other. Play those games, have those explanatory storylines, so therefore you're not caught flat-footed. You're not caught off guard when it happens to you.
Yeah. All right. So a couple other things that he brought up, we kind of all put into one, I think, because he was interested in Walt. I'm talking about Walt asking us questions when we were on his pod, but he brought up hey, how we talked about on episode 63 on fear, the first one we did a fear about panic buying and people buying up toilet paper. He also brought up some things about conformists and nonconformists and people fitting in.
Yep.
And he also brought up something about self-soothing and self-healing, methodologies that people employ. I would say all three of those separate items that he just brought up, kind of questions, are kind of can be all tied together, right?
I absolutely agree.
So I would say, how do we tie things like self-soothing behaviors, things like panic buying and that kind of crowd mentality,
Yep.
and what was the third thing I brought up? I don't even remember. Conformists and nonconformists
Yep.
about group behavior. So can you answer, sort of rope all three of those elements into one common theme or explanatory storyline, I guess?
Yeah, yeah. So Brian knows, most of you folks don't, that this morning was the first day in Gunnison when the dentist had reopened, and I'm due for cleaning, as was Shelley Williams, CEO of our company. So she made the appointment. She went in at 8. Mine was at 9. Uh, Folks might not know that of all the things in the world that frighten me, there are 2 things: my God and my father. My father's dead. If there was a
Still scares you
third,
though.
I'm still petrified.
He might come
And
back.
you know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
if he does, if there's ever a Zombie, he'll be leading it. Uh, but next to my Uncle Paul, those 2 bastards will be coming at me. But the third thing, the de facto third item, would be Dennis. Since I was a child, listen, we used to have to sit in wooden chairs that were bolted down to wooden floors, and they had this big thing that looked like an ear cleaner that they came up with fluoride, and they fluoridated. Shout out to Fluorida, I love them, by the way. And they fluoridated you when they had a big metal thing on your face. It looked like something. What's that guy that does Corpse Bride and all that other stuff? It looks like a movie he would
Yeah, I
invent.
forget what you're
So
talking about. Yeah,
yeah, he blows anyway.
whatever his
But
name.
the idea
Tim
is
Burton.
Burton, yeah, Burton, you blow. So the idea was that all of the stuff that they would put in your mouth made noise, and you didn't have earplugs, and there was no background music. And like, I don't trust jazz music because I don't know
No.
where it's going next.
Well,
You know
no
what I'm
one
saying?
actually
That
likes
surprised me.
jazz music. People just
No,
pretend
and
to
it keeps me
sound
doing
cool.
that the whole time, right? Like on an
Yeah.
elevator, what's going to happen? But the idea was that all of the stress builds up, Brian. So I'm ready to explode well before I ever get there. Now, you have to conform to rules. You got to sit in the lobby. You got to read the highlights magazine. You got to wait for the next person. You got to be chipper. Hi, how are you? Hey. And then right away they say, oh, you're the guy that needs a gas because you're a real asshole when you're coming to the dentist. All of those things stress me out. So if I know that the situation I'm about to go into is going to be a high stress situation, it's incumbent upon
Yeah.
me to call them and go, listen, I'm a big handful. I'm a hot mess, and I'm coming in, and I just need to prepare you folks for it. I'm not very good at this. Please help talk me down. Then when I get there, I dress appropriately for the dentist's office. I do all these preparations. You know why? Because it's not fair for me to come in and go, yeah, and go off on them every time. What am I going to do? Change dentists? There's only 2 towns close to me.
Yeah.
So I have to modify my behavior, right?
Whoa,
Now,
whoa, 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 whoa.
go
You have to
ahead.
modify your own behavior?
Yes, I
You're
got to
telling me
turn
this
the
isn't,
laser and
I
the
would just want to blame
flashlight.
everyone else and
Brian,
make
it's called
them.
the shake weight. First you shake. Now, you're, I can't take you seriously with that background, just so you know. Brian Maron's a dumpster fire, folks, but he's on
Yeah. I got
somewhere.
to get one of those backgrounds, an
Oh
actual
my
dumpster
God.
on fire.
We're
But
just smoldering the whole
yeah.
time. Yeah, but no, you're exactly right. So look, your conformist, non-conformist thing, folks, follow the rules, because if you don't follow the rules, you're the anomaly. Kichin Funakoshi in the 1600s said, if a nail sticks out, pound it down. And I completely agree with them. There's rules for a reason. And you know, your personal opinion, when you write, dear editor, you know what I'm saying? I just want to write to tell you that
Yeah.
this person's a, keep that to yourself. Nobody's
Well,
reading it, and all you're doing is piss people off. Modify your own. Clean your own house before you're going to come across the street and tell me mine. That's some famous guy wrote that somewhere.
Yeah, well, no, that's the thing, is that a lot of this is, we do forget, or a lot of people forget, that we live in a society, so it's not just about us. As much as we think, oh, everything's
Easy to
about
forget
me,
that.
like,
Yep.
no, you live in this is shared, this is communal property we're all in. So you gotta kind of, you have to
So
be
prove that.
cognizant of others. So
Prove that to the people that are listening and viewing, and the 3 people that have been with us since the beginning. Thank you. 2 of them were Brian and I.
yeah,
So
I never listen to this
exactly,
podcast.
it blows. It blows worse than Tim Burton. But the idea, Marin,
Who else are you gonna piss
how many
off on
times? I
this
don't know.
podcast?
I remember, I'm just coming off the gas.
Yeah.
So if I'm on the 5, okay, going between San whatever and San whatever, you know what I'm saying? San Juan Capistrano and San
Yeah.
Obispo, wherever the hell I am. And the traffic immediately slows to nothing. 9 lanes going and coming, and all of a
Yeah.
sudden it's
It's
gridlock.
nothing.
The very, very first thing that you say is, how is this going to affect me?
Yep.
And you immediately get pissed. You don't say, that poor woman, that kid, that dog, somebody died. Oh my God, it's a
Yeah.
horrific crash. I hope they're okay, and say a prayer. We don't do that. We think, how is this going to mess with my weekend, my day, my whatever? And we got to come off the gas once in a while, Brian, because sometimes we're bringing so much hot coals to that savanna that we're going to start that dry grass on fire. And we can't do that. People think, well, I have the right to say and do whatever. Yeah, the amendments are there for a reason. But you know why we had to codify them? Because there was a lot
Yeah.
of assholes out there.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, we
There's
had to point to it and go,
my
this is the thing,
my
right?
that's my favorite thing when people are like, have you read the Constitution? I was like, oh, okay, that's a framework. Have you read any case law? Do you understand
Exactly.
like any
And the
case
funny
law?
thing is,
Like
where do
any.
you think, you know that every one of my vehicles, my Constitution is in the drink. I wish I could take the camera
Yeah.
right outside, because I just, the pocket
Yep.
Constitution,
Yep.
I got it, baby, because I'm
That's
ready at
great.
the moment's notice, because I'll slap you on the forehead with it and go, because I know every Supreme Court decision that comes down, because I
Well,
educate myself on that.
well, that's what it comes down to, is knowing every Supreme Court decision, not what
Yeah,
amendment there is. Like, I mean,
but why do
meaning
we
that's
use
a.
it? Why do we
Yeah.
use it? We use it to de-escalate. That's a great point. How many times have we had to tell somebody that, hey, listen, let's start over. What's
Yeah.
on your mind?
Yeah.
Now, do you get what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
Then they say their piece, right? And it's from Mars, Brian. It's
Yeah.
way out there.
Well, you
And you're
just
going, wow, how broken is this little snowflake in
it,
front of me, right?
it's like dealing with a conspiracy theorist. Just let them talk long enough, and you'll hear how little information is there, and you'll realize
Exactly.
if they get in this Mobius loop of like, oh, this is all about you. Just keep going. No, please tell me more. I'd love to learn more.
Or
And
you
they
can
run
go,
out. So yeah,
remember Punch and Judy? I
yeah.
mean, what good came out of that? There's no good.
So
And in your marriage, and in your relationships and talking with your kid, you
yeah,
gotta do a little bit of homework before you go in there and go, hey, what am I going to say to Timmy? Whatever the situation is, what I said, because if you do your knee jerk, Brian, if you do what's on the tip of your
it's
tongue,
not
what's
good.
on your heart,
I know.
it's not gonna end
I
well.
know.
You
I
got
know.
Irish parents. My dad was half Irish and he had Indian blood in him, and
Oh,
he was
that's
from
not
the
good. Oh,
Appalachians. You get what I'm saying? So he
Jesus.
was an
I
Indian that couldn't
forgot.
hold his liquor.
I
Okay.
forgot.
And we came from a hitting clan. So anybody that you
Yeah.
watched that thing in Silence of the Lambs, that
Yeah.
was my life every day.
You're a hit and crew. We were more about the the psychological and emotional abuse.
Yeah. My dad had no idea what those words meant in that order, so he just resorted to hitting. Oh, you think, hey, you're a humor boy, huh? Wow,
One of the things, so that brought up a lot of what Walt brought up, and I just kind of want to hit on.
Yeah.
And
No.
he brought up some great stuff. So again, everyone, the Distinguished Savage podcast has got some really cool people on there. I like to call, like, he's that guy finding those niche people or like tradesmen, real true
Yeah,
craftsmen, or like
exactly.
that are really really good at what they do, whether that's
Laser
making knife,
focused.
whether that's knife making or this certain type of training or whatever. And he reaches out to those people, so it's great. It's a really cool pod.
Yep.
One of the things I want to bring up that I always hear, because everyone's so fascinated by it. We've talked about it a little bit before. Well, we've talked about it before, but you know, everyone always wants to know about body language. Like, hey, that person's crossing their arms, or they're doing this, or they're standing this way, or that. And we always have to kind of tell them and walk them back and go, well, hang on here. That you can't. You're already at a microscopic view level. You're at a zoom of 30 power already,
Yep.
and you haven't even understood it at a 30,000 foot level, right? So we always have to walk that back a little bit. So I guess everyone is interested in body language. Why should that be the last thing that I'm concerned about, Greg? Or why should that be? Does that
Best
make
framed
sense?
question, the best question that we've had on the show, I think, on these viewer question shows. Now, I'll take you back to a time where I had a disagreement with a sniper instructor from the east part of the continental United States, where he couldn't wrap it around his brain that all our observations were going to start a minimum of a click away. And because we were in this area, we actually had a 1,200 meter OP.
Right.
And he was
Observation
like,
post
this
for
is
everyone.
ridiculous. Observation post. He goes,
Yeah.
this is ridiculous. We have people standing in the back of a 7-ton holding binos, and we got camouflage draped over their head in the hot sun and doing this and that and watching this place that I can't even see. And he was all up in my grill. And it was like, listen, the furthest away, even assisted by your optics, if you can't. Just like yesterday, you and I had that conversation about shadows at night, okay?
Yeah, shadows at night.
What's the poor man's fleur? Night vision goggles.
Yeah.
What's the poor man's night vision goggles? A flashlight. If I don't have a flashlight, I got to rely on these.
Yeah.
But anything that I can get, a spotting scope, binos, anything else, if I
Still
look at
works
the
at night.
situation, I'm far enough away that I'm going to make a better conclusion. I'm going to draw a much more reasonable conclusion because guess what? It's going to be a fidelity-filled observation, and the granularity is going to be artifacts and evidence that support my conclusion. So if I go like this, go every day, and I have to make decisions like that school you went to, right, where they pull the mask off and you're surrounded by those guys thumping you. Okay, that's great, folks. That's great to learn how to fight out of it. But if that's where you're starting, you're already at bang. Bang is the worst place to start thinking. Now, we have to take that in the full 360, like the Fabergé egg of life that we're juggling all the time. We have to do the full 360. So we do left of bang, we do at bang, we do just after bang, and we do, guess what, right of bang because it's left of the next bang.
Yeah.
We have to do it all. But if you are right on top of that decision every time you make it, Brian, you're not going to make an informed decision, and sooner or later you're going to make a mistake. And in our business, making a mistake can cost somebody their life. So the further, the better.
Right.
And therefore, kinesics, body language.
Yes.
Like for example, eye tracking. Do you get what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
Hey, read interview technique. Yeah, okay, that's fantastic. But if I'm not watching the guy in the parking lot when he walks into the business for his appointment, I'm missing cues, Brian. I'm missing a rare opportunity, a glimpse at this person's humanity.
Right, and that's like if I haven't even identified the whole team he's working with, and I'm already focused on one person, I'm missing I'm missing 90% of what's or 95% of what's.
We're back to that horse with them blinders, right? So now we're so laser focused that we're going to miss cues.
And then it also, you end up jamming the square peg into a round hole. It becomes like a parlor trick. Oh, every time someone rubs their nose this way, it means this. Or if I cross my arms. No, man, sometimes it's comfortable to cross your arms.
Exactly. Sometimes it's cold in the room. You get what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
And so
sometimes
I'm just
scared and I'm just rubbing myself to feel better.
We're back to the masturbation. My idea to you, Marin, is the people that are listening right now, I always like to street definition. Everybody watches gore porn on TV with the homicides and all those shows and everything.
Oh, okay. Hang on.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
You're classifying the crime shows and documentaries as gore porn. So just
exactly.
So everyone's like, everyone's pausing this right now to Google gore porn. But no.
Okay.
Because you're right. We are fascinated by all those.
Right?
That's why there's a million documentaries on all that stuff.
So nobody ever gets away. Nobody ever gets away. Everybody gets caught sooner or later.
Or they die.
But exactly. They die and can't reoffend or whatever. But the idea is that think in the terms of the cold case. Everybody here's watched an episode of Cold Case, whether it was Hollywood or whether it was real or recreated or a documentary. If I go back to the cold case and I take a look at everything everybody's done before me, and I recreate those experiments that were done before me, what conclusion do you think I'm going to draw? I'm going to be back at I'm going to be sitting on the shitter going, hey, wasn't I just here? The idea is you have to look with fresh eyes. You have to open up that investigation and say, here's the way I'm going to approach this. I'm going to look at this and where the witnesses and that, and come to your own conclusions. Now, you can use those other things as a comparison, Brian, but we have confirmation bias. We think we're always right. We look only for conclusions that support the information that we believe. So we tread on very thin ice when we go into that situation. And that's when it's always good to look at a battle buddy and go, hey, am I overreacting to this? Am I missing something? Yeah. What's in this situation, right? Because if we go right to kinesics, I'll give you the thing. Kinesics and biometrics are excellent. And they're the decision point for Reem. For me, when I go into a room, okay, I haven't drawn any conclusion. I've seen all the artifacts and information, and I come up with an explanatory storyline. I go, if it's this, he's going to be doing this. If it's this, he's going to be doing it. And now he's sitting down at the interview, and I go, hey, how are you doing? And all of a sudden I see, sleeves going down, hoodie comes up, everything else. I go, he did it. Yeah. Why? Because I've done all of my legwork, Brian, working up to that point, and then those cues are consistent or inconsistent. They're congruent or they're incongruent. So I use that as the icing on the cake.
So that's it right there, because that's the simple takeaway, or not simple. I mean, it's complicated, but meaning something that you can use right there, incongruence. Yep. And we talk about that all the time, is that rather than sitting here trying to figure out what it means when someone scratches the back of their head versus the front, because we offer examples like those in a specific context when we talk about it.
In that context. Yes. And it doesn't mean crap when you're in city market in the fruit department.
So rather than trying to figure out what each one of those those little things is, what do you look for? Incongruent behavior. If this person means this, or this is what their role is, what else should I see associated with that
You're
role? And
exactly
if they're
right.
not doing that, I'm seeing incongruence, or do the words coming out of that person's mouth match what's manifesting on their body? It's like, remember the what was it, the fire chief
Yeah, yeah.
in Southern California years ago, when he came on the news, and he's sitting there trying to tell everyone everything going to be fine, but he's
And
sitting
he
there
was doing like this.
shaking his
I mean, he
head,
did
and
everything, but
he
his
had
feet were tapping.
yeah,
Remember?
and
Yeah.
we're looking at it going, this isn't going
So
to go
listen,
well, right?
there's certain emergency indicators that
Yeah,
fall into kin and bio that you have to pay attention to. So you're looking at a crowd of people for the one that just ran from you, and this guy's breaking a sweat, and his chest is heaving, and
yeah,
everybody else is ice cold and going, "Hey, this guy just got here." Yeah, okay, I get it. But bald fist, you get what I'm trying to say? In
yeah,
those anger cues. Look, if you're at ground zero and those are occurring, you got to create distance. You got to create distance and de-escalate, or you're going to be in a trick bag. But if that's where you start all the time, it's no place to go. You got to get that gift of time and distance and take in the big picture, because the more information you have, the better conclusion you'll draw. And we're not talking about analysis paralysis, Brian. The,
no,
the great thing is my good buddy Gary Klein, shout out to Gary and all the
yeah,
geniuses like Marty Seligman and those guys. But just keep writing your theories and putting them on a book
yeah,
on a shelf. No practical experience, no stuff on the street.
yeah.
Look, if you see that stuff and you don't do something about it on the street, you might get popped in the nose. You might get shot. You might get your car stolen. Time and distance are the key.
All right. Well, so those are kind of some of the questions that we, common ones. One, there were Walt's questions, and then common ones that we kind of hear from people who contact us in general, whether that's in passing or a text message or a Facebook Messenger or whatever.
Yep.
There are a lot of them are similar. So,
And they're great
um,
questions.
oh
Great questions.
yeah, yeah.
Comment.
And we always want to stress that things are in context. So I want to throw to you, Greg, if any examples are like, what's something that maybe either that we have or haven't covered that's important that you get from a lot of people that maybe you've thought about for a while, and you know what, hey, maybe we need to get better at addressing this because I'm getting a lot of questions on it. Not addressing it, but maybe something. I don't know if you have something on your mind that you go, you know what, I've heard a lot, or you know what, we need to talk about it this way.
And remember, a lot of those questions, Brian, and yeah, I've got one that bounced around.
I got a
A
few
lot
that
of those
I got
questions are
something that
like,
grinds my gears.
exactly. A lot of them are like AAR comments. There's consistent AAR comments. Like
After
we're
action
lucky
review,
that
you're
we
talking
get.
about when
I
after a
apologize.
course. Yeah. But yeah, people, there's
We get
consistent comments we
very
get from people.
consistent. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, hey, where's this training before my last deployment? Why am I just now hearing about this? Whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is,
So a
yeah.
lot of people will frame a question because we're afraid. Remember, when we're afraid, we increase our level of violence. We also increase our panic and anxiety, and those are never good. Those are contra healthy, and that's why we're talking to people to try to show you how to improve your mental health just as much as your physical health. Both are important. But what bothers folks are things they can't control. So people will come up and they will phrase it, Brian, as like a hallway comment. Hey, that was a really great course, but are you saying that I got to be tuned into
Yeah.
everything that's going on, right? So I would say to you that my most pervasive comment, the one that I see repeated most often and everything else, is when something happens and a person will look at me and go, well, you couldn't have predicted that. Okay, look, I don't have a magic 8 ball. And
Yeah.
I'm not John Edward. I don't read dead people like in The Sixth Sense, seeing them all over like that little, what was that little kid's name? He's got a gigantic head now.
Haley Joel Osment.
Yeah. He's got a little baby face now, but a big, gigantic head. Look it up, folks. It's hilarious. He's great. Love him. Hate Burton. But the idea was like 24 hours ago, the poor female that was, they just opened up the hair and nail salon or whatever, and she was leaving on an island to go back to the parking lot in her car, walked by a flipping pond. Folks, if you've ever been in North Carolina or South Carolina or
Yeah.
Florida or Alabama,
They're
those places,
everywhere.
there's ponds everywhere.
Yeah.
And some people fish at them. Some are just in a trailer park for show with the lily pads and the frogs to give it a natural feel. And an alligator came out and grabbed her, drug her in, and she drowned. The alligator was trying to
Jeez.
kill her and keep her for later. And so the very first text message I got right after that came out was that article and
Mm-hmm.
say, bet you couldn't have profiled that. How do you profile a flipping alligator?
Well,
So
Steve
first of all,
Irwin.
exactly. First of all, well, there's a perfect example. You just
Yeah.
answered it. How did Steve Irwin die?
Yeah.
Live by
Exactly.
the sword, die by the sword. Stingray barb in his heart. He was a great guy. He was playing in that environment, and he knew the stakes. That's what I'm saying is he died doing something he loved doing, and he
And
knew
he
the
was a
stakes, and his
professional at it.
family.
Yeah.
Exactly. So what you have to be is you have to either engage a professional or get yourself to the level of a professional. Because if you don't anticipate it, like nobody in our audience that's listening or watching right now is saying, I will walk in on an armed robbery in progress one day in my life. Nobody, until they do. And then they're
Yeah.
going, I tell you what, the most scary thing. We had a guy, Brian, we were doing the school in Dallas. Folks, we do the schools from
But
the
no, no,
perspective of,
no,
you
no
know,
names, no names,
yeah, I
please.
got it. But we do it from the perspective of the administration and the
Yeah.
students and the community and everybody around that's stakeholders, right? And so we're doing it. And the guy comes up and he goes, hey, it's a funny situation. He says, because my wife and I were at this baseball park, you know, where there's like 4 different diamonds that are there. And
Yeah,
they're
like a little
all,
league parks or high school parks where there's like all facing outward and
and
there's a
so they were
center.
eating and have, yeah, exactly. They were eating and having a little barbecue and stuff.
Yeah.
They saw this guy walking around and he said, hey, he gave off all the signals you were talking about. And we knew it was odd because we go there every Tuesday night at this time. And, you know, the way he parked and the way he walked and the guy was articulating all this stuff. And
Yeah.
then, you know, I knew he was going to come over and rob us. And sure enough, he comes over and robs us and he was going to take the car. And I think he was going to kill us. And then I had to talk him down. And I'm sitting there and tears are welling in my eyes because I feel so bad for this guy's story. So he
Yeah.
tells me the entire story, right? And I'm sitting there listening, going, oh my God, you knew the same things that I do. But when I see it, I bug the hell out. What
Yeah.
you did is you stuck around eating
And
the
ate the
popcorn saying,
popcorn. Right.
what's going to happen next? I'm fascinated by this. I've got to stick around and see where this goes. And you know, Brian, if somebody's going to shoot me on a robbery, it's going to be in my ass because I'm going to be running. I'm going to be doing my wicked parkour skills and getting the hell out of there. So what I'm saying is that you folks say that this weird situation, look, if you go to a Duden guest ranch, you might fall off on a horse and die. If you're going on a Caribbean cruise, it might be overtaken by pirates, or you might be locked in for 6 months because of COVID.
Yeah.
If you don't anticipate, and you don't have to walk around anxiety ridden, Brian, you can't be hyper alert because that's non-sustainable. But you certainly can go, hey, I'm going to the gas station. Let's see, I got my wallet, I got my, do you see what I'm saying? Do like a mental pre-deployment checklist of
Well,
the things that are going to be happening. I did it this morning with the gosh damn dentist.
yeah, you kind of hit it right there with that. And because we do get a lot of questions or people ask, well, then how am I supposed to do this, right? Because that was Walt's thing too. And Jesse's like, well, look, I haven't been to your training. Like, he's trying to get us down to his agency, and he's like,
Yep.
but you know, I don't. So what am I supposed to do? And that's our whole thing is, look, you already know your environment. You already have the answers, right? So like you just said, all right, that guy articulated everything that led up to that. So you can go back to different experiences you've had in life and write down, yellow pad it. Like you just said, make that list
Yep.
of everything you saw and then go, oh, these are called pre-event indicators.
You're
I need to
exactly right.
look for these, not look for the
Next
end
time.
result, right?
Exactly.
That's what I need to understand. That's what I need to realize. And then what you just said too is just a general plan, an understanding of there's a lot of things going out in the world, and I know we have a lot on our mind and we're constantly thinking about what we need to do in our next paycheck and this and that, but it's not worth your life. Meaning, how many times, you know, we always say it, how many times on the news do you hear or see about a gas station or convenience store getting
Yep.
robbed? Probably happens 100 times a day in this country, if you were to add it all up. I'm guessing somewhere around there,
I think you're at
whether it's at least someone grabbing a candy bar or someone robbing it with a gun or knife or weapon, right? That happens 100 times a day in this country. Yet, when's the last time you pulled up to the pump before you got out of your car? You took a look around. You looked through the glass of the
exactly.
well-lit convenience store that's inside there and take a
Any
look at what's
cars
going
parked
on.
idling, anybody
Yeah,
aiming to go out, anybody in a hurry to get in or out of the place, anybody wearing a mask other than a
that's why I
COVID
don't.
mask.
Yeah, that's
I
why I
mean,
don't like
there's
the
so,
masks. Remember when we
but
saw the guys with the mask? Same thing down in Dallas when we all of a sudden the car comes ripping into the gas
yep.
station while we're sitting there pumping up, and
And
they
what
got
did
the
we do
masks
though?
on, and immediately we went into full effect because we thought everything looked like this was a robbery.
Months before COVID,
Why would you
and
be wearing those masks?
exactly.
Yeah,
And you know
and
what? They were drywall guys.
drywallers.
And they're just
Exactly.
working next door. But the idea is that we weren't caught flat-footed. We weren't
No.
caught off guard. We weren't surprised by the events. Could that occur? Yeah. You're going to walk out of your door one day from your office and get hit by a piece of a meteor, you know, Joe Dirt,
Yeah.
and it's going to be the worst effect of your life. Well, I can't predict that, but I can certainly say you
Someone
should look
can.
around. You should smell, feel. Yeah, yeah. And educate yourself on those things. Because if you don't, then guess what? You're playing catch up. And that's, again, right back to John Boyd and his OODA loop, right? Brian, I want to ask a question. You
Yeah.
remember that we got a grief from a guy because we asked them to provide some stuff for training. And folks, this is what we asked for. We said we want 30 or 40 folding chairs. We want 10 or 12 folding tables, all stuff that was easy to get in the time before we got down there. And they didn't see the logic behind it. They didn't see why they had to have the tents and, those little pop-up tents that you have out for a barbecue. We turn that stuff into props because we can't afford to have the bus that you have to search every day that it comes into
Yeah,
your business.
you don't need
So
it.
we put the 40 chairs together and put a table together, and we got a flipping Subway. We got the L. We got whatever it is that we have to recreate, because your brain doesn't care about that. That doesn't have to be the high value dollar stuff. And we don't have to put a bunch
No.
of sesams and laser crap down range. What we have to do is we have to make sure that we up armor your brain for these different pre-event indications, because when they start to coalesce and the clusters come together, that's the magic that goes, danger warning, Will Robinson, we're in trouble. And if you
Right.
can get that, then you're going to survive.
Yeah, and you're just talking about recreating training events that are cognitively close enough to the real
Yep.
thing, right? It doesn't have to be picture perfect. It's funny because I know we just did kind of a post on that stuff and some of our social media of showing some examples of training and going like, look, it doesn't have to be, you don't have to get this specific dialect speaker and hire 30 of them to come in and populate this area. That
No,
doesn't make any
Brian,
sense,
fire
right?
drills work.
Yeah,
Fire
exactly.
drills work.
Yeah.
And guess what? It becomes a procedure. It becomes a thing you do. When I hear that alarm, I do it. I don't second guess it. I go out. They don't have to have a flashbang and a smoke generator. Do you get what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, you don't have to
And the
light the
sirens
school
blaring.
on fire for the
Exactly.
fire
Now,
drill.
now, if I was going to go to advanced fire management
Yes.
for the teachers and stuff, I would take them to that. I would have the
Right.
local fire department show us, they do that Connex and they light it on
Well,
fire and show
yeah.
what it's like from a mask. Yeah,
it-
you got to see that at certain levels,
that
but not everybody in the crew has.
no, and that's a great analogy to understand training and what level people need at your organization, right? What do the kids at the school need? Well, they need to know where to go, where
Yep.
to line up, where to leave, how to get out, and the procedure for leaving. Okay, and then the teachers
And
need
what's
to
the
know,
trigger? What
then,
makes
yep,
me put that into? Yeah, you're exactly right.
the teachers need to know at the operational level, hey, where the accountability works in and where they're going to do this and who they're going to report to and everything, and then the firemen are the ones that have to go to the training where you go put out a fire, right? Because
Exactly.
that's their level of what they need. But the kid doesn't need. I think that's a great analogy that
Yeah,
you
and
just made
I'm
there.
the vice principal, so I need to know
Yeah.
emergency services
Who
101. I
who am
need
I
to know what the fire
communicating with?
exactly.
Who's the yeah.
Who took roll? How many people are out
Yeah.
here? And where's little Tommy again? That little bastard. Is he still in school?
Yeah.
The idea is it's not expensive and it's not hard. And if you make it a habit, Brian, just like smoking, it becomes a hard habit to break because your brain says it now. Hey, why aren't we working out this morning? Hey,
Yeah.
why are we going to the
I hate
breakfast?
that.
We never eat like this.
Yeah.
And then when you engage that, Brian, I think you're going to be you're going to be stronger, faster, and much harder to kill.
All right. Well, I think that's kind of a good spot because we answered a bunch of the questions, and then I know we'll get more. So, folks, if you're listening and you do have specific stuff, take the time, put it on paper, send it to me,
Yep. We love it.
leftofgreg@gmail.com, and we'll cover it. And if it's good enough like that, we'll post it up and we'll do stuff and we'll talk about it and we'll get the information out there. Because if you have a question, likely one of the other listeners is thinking the same thing. So please go ahead and write in and contact us. I'm going to have a bunch of links up in the episode details to include our webinar series that's going on. So you guys, we can do that on Wednesdays. You can sign up for that. And then if you still sign up for it, even if you can't make the time, because that will allow you to get the email to the link to the recording of the video. That'll be up for a couple days. And then we'll move everything over to the website here soon. But make sure you stay in contact with us. Same thing, follow us on social media and everything. All the links are in the episode details of whatever you're listening to this on or watching us on YouTube. Again, I think watching it on YouTube adds another 25% to it, if
I
not
agree.
more. I don't know. Not just the fun things we have going on in the background, but the communication wise and listening and taking in information visually, you need that is going to help out a lot. So I always say check out the Left of Greg YouTube channel. So Greg, I don't know if there's anything else you want to add in before we kind of wrap for the
Just
day.
briefly, Brian. Brian and I have been lucky enough to be asked on a number of shows, podcasts, radio shows, all that other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Go to the website and check them out.
Yeah.
They're a lot of fun, and please support those folks. Those folks are
Right.
great people doing great things out there. And Brian says it so eloquently. Sometimes just hitting a like
It is
can be the difference for a business.
No, it is, especially right now, getting on the social media stuff, guys, or listening to the podcast and giving it a review, actually hitting the stars, and you don't have to even write anything. You're just hitting all that stuff and adding up those little things. Everyone doing it over time actually helps out quite a bit. So it
It
kind of
really
gets us
does.
out there, grows the audience, and everything like that. So we appreciate everyone for tuning in. Thank you so much. Look forward to another good next week's episode. And don't forget that training changes behavior.